What's up, folks? Thanks for tuning in. Episode 2, the Tim Trutone Talk Show, baby. And on Wednesdays, we talk about Nirvana. Got my Sub Pop mug here, sent to me by Mark Aram himself from Mudhoney. But anyone who buys things from Sub Pop can get a little handwritten note from Mark Aram. For an old school grunge fan, it's pretty cool. I hope the intro music sounds good. I did this myself. I didn't mean for it to be the intro music, it just kind of fits for the grungy sound. But audio-wise, it might not be as crisp as I hoped. Format issues. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 Nirvana books you should read. I threw in an extra one, so I think it's 6. And then I did 3 honorable mentions for you guys. We'll try to save those for actually in between things and not all for the end, like in my last countdown video. Cool, so I guess the intro music's done. Hopefully everything could be heard over that. Hopefully it all works out well. Welcome to the show. Hey! All right. It's your host with the most here. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. So much applause. All right, so let's get started here, folks. I know nobody really reads books these days, but if you are an intelligent songwriter, I would suggest that you read to at least enhance your vocabulary a little bit. And no better way to do that than to read rock biographies, right? I'll do another countdown later on of some of my other favorite bands' books. But for now, let's just dive right into it, just like Kurt wants you to dive in him. Dive being one of the greatest Nirvana songs of all time. All right, so we'll start with, like I said, top 5 was my thing, and I think I did 6. So we can just consider this one not really a book about Nirvana because it's written by a member of Nirvana, and it wasn't really meant to be a book in the first place. It's Kurt's journals. I had the copy that was the hardcover copy back in the day. It looked more like that. But then once you took the little cover sleeve off, it had that sort of notebooky vibe underneath it anyway. So cool stuff in this journal. Some drawings that he did that were pretty cool, little comic strips and things. In addition to, original lyrics to many of his songs, crude attempts at guitar tablature and things that he wrote in there, stuff like that. So we'll just say journals is number whatever it is, because as with all my countdown videos, there's no real number 1 here. These are all great books, and you should get into them. So we'll cycle through the journals photos and we'll get to the next book in the line here. Now, Danny Goldberg is a wise old music veteran. He's done some great interviews where he doesn't even talk about Nirvana that much. He just talks about his time in the music industry. There's a podcast that he was on a couple weeks ago. I'm going to try and find what the name was that you guys should listen to. It's called Rock and Roll High School with Pete Ganbarg. And Danny was on an episode in October. And it was a really good episode, man. He talks about hanging out with Stevie Nicks and Bonnie Raitt, and obviously he worked for Led Zeppelin for quite some time. So pretty cool. This book really goes hard on one side of the Kurt Cobain narrative that a lot of the fans might not like. A lot of people still debate his final days and what happened, myself included. I think that there was definitely some foul play involved. A lot of suspicion surrounding this guy's end. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Courtney was putting her feminine charms on someone like Danny Goldberg, an older guy. How could you say no to Courtney back in those days? I couldn't. Lord knows I couldn't. And I love Kurt Cobain. So, like I said, we will stick some honorable mentions in betwixt the picks. So, this will be my first honorable mention, going from one guy who worked with Kurt Cobain to another. Danny's book, he really met Kurt for the first time shortly after Dave did. I think he said he met them for the first time in November of 1990, and Dave only joined the band in October of 1990. So really cool stuff in this book about Nirvana, but also about Dave. This was the first book where I actually learned that Dave had tried to quit Nirvana in 1993, but he was talked into staying by management. Now it's a little more talked about in public spheres and news journals and things like that. But until this book came out, that was pretty well under wraps. Even in some of the more official biographies and things like that, I never even heard those kinds of stories. So great book. Dave's awesome, man. I voted for him for president in 2008. I wrote him in on the ballot because there's no way I was going to vote for the other guy. Absolutely not. Either one of the ones that were on there. But yeah, we'll try to keep politics out of it though. But yeah, certain someone ruined this country. All right, so next, moving on, Heavier Than Heaven. I guess this is the third book on the official list out of 5 that ended up being 6. This book was the first Kurt Cobain biography I had ever personally read back when I was, probably in like 6th or 7th grade, way back in 2001 or 2002. Yeah, man, I just stayed up all night and read this book in like one fell swoop back in the day. It was really good, and I'd like to read it again, but knowing other layers to the Cobain legend now, it seems like some of the stuff that was written in this book isn't exactly historically accurate, especially once again going to his controversial final days. But still a great book, man. One of the books that really kind of shaped the way I wanted to grow up and be, for better or for worse, right? So keeping with the heaven theme, we'll go to another one of our honorable mentions here. This was just a book that I used to see it in Barnes and Noble all the time, and I never got it, and I probably should have. I thought it was kind of silly because it's a graphic novel, so obviously it's not going to be historically accurate or anything. But there was some cool artwork in it, and everybody, we all love Kurt, and we all, if you're a rock and roll fan, he crosses your mind a lot more often than you would think. And I don't know, I just feel like this book kind of cashed in on the tragedy side of the narrative, and as tragic as Kurt's upbringing was, I still kind of have a hard time feeling bad for the guy. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I don't really want to wax on about all that forever and talk bad about someone who struggled through life, because we all do. So I guess we'll just move on to the next one. This book was the only book to actually come out while Kurt was still alive. Michael Azerrad, in a wonderful article that you guys should read. I think it was called My Time with Kurt, or My Time with Kurt Cobain by Michael Azerrad. He talks about, bringing the proofs to this book to Kurt in a hotel and sitting there in silence while Kurt, just chain smoked and read through the book and told him if everything was, good or not. But this book, I feel like, also kind of whitewashes the Nirvana legend, because this book came out in a sense to push back against the Lynn Hirschberg like Vanity Fair like junkie rock narrative that was going on, because Courtney couldn't control herself long enough to look like a good mother, and embarrassed herself and Kurt in the process. And then you had supposedly Dave, who was sleeping with some other journalist and talking trash about Kurt and Courtney behind their backs to this lady over the pillows. So I don't know. Sorry, Dave. I love you, man, but I understand why your relationship with Kurt was never the same if that happened. And I also understand why you keep a pretty tight vest when it comes to dealing with the media these days. People are always trying to, tear things down so they can build up their own brand, right? But I wanted this. Maybe for the holidays, I was going to buy myself a copy of it, the new version of Come As You Are that just came out, the amplified version. It's fun. Isn't there an amplified Bible? Gotta love the sacrilegiousness of it all, right? But yeah, a bunch of extra pictures and stuff along with the text in the amplified version, but they're all in black and white, which kind of bums me out. There was another Nirvana book with pictures and things I saw back in the day. I actually owned it. And those were in color. I can't remember what the name of the book was. They used to sell it at Barnes and Noble. But it had like that big picture of Kurt Cobain in the pool on the cover, with the crappy Epiphone guitar, which Nirvana like never played Epiphones except for maybe in like 1990 briefly. I think he bought an Epiphone in Charlotte, North Carolina, actually, before they played the Milestone. And if you go back and listen to Love Buzz from the Milestone set, he actually talks about in the lyrics to Love Buzz, he changes them to like, I just bought a new guitar today. It costs $250 and it really sucks or something. So Kurt didn't like Epiphones, which, I mean, Epiphones weren't really making good stuff back in 1990 anyway. I have two Epiphone guitars. One I really kind of like, even though it's still got some flaws with it, and one I really don't like that much, but I'm gonna keep it anyway. All right, so enough about me. Let's get to another honorable mention of books that talk about Kurt Cobain and or Nirvana. This will be the last honorable mention for this particular video, and it's by one of Kurt Cobain's best friends and one of the best singers that you have probably never heard of, you little poser. Sing Backwards and Weep by Mark Lanigan. This book is fantastic. Even when he's not talking about Nirvana, you will find yourself absolutely captivated. He's got some really funny stories about hanging out with Lane Staley of Alice in Chains as well. So hopefully you guys read this book and enjoy it. It's the only other book that perhaps makes you think that Kurt chose to go out the way he did, and like in addition to the Danny Goldberg one, I feel like it really kind of paints the dark side of Kurt. But there's also some weird stuff in it, like he mentions, going to the movies with Courtney Love like a week after Kurt died, and it's like, yeah, so what were you guys doing while you went to the movies? Yeah, depraved adult stuff, I'm sure. But maybe not. I don't know. Everybody grieves differently. So who am I to say? But I've got my opinions, and if they offend you, sorry, dude. All right. So from one friend to the other here, the second to last book in this countdown is a book that I lent a friend of mine and I still haven't got back. It's been 2.5 years and I want my book back. No, I'm just kidding. I'll buy another one. Don't lend things to people unless you expect to not get them back. This is why I don't let people play my guitars and stuff. Sorry. But yeah, this book is great. I found my friends. It's it says the oral history of Nirvana on it. So it's like one of those books, where it just has like someone's name and then a couple of sentences and someone else's name and a couple of sentences. And it's just, an oral history book. So, I'm sure that Kurt wouldn't have mind if it was blue. You get it? What else can I say about this book? This book was the first book where I learned about Kurt Cobain putting out a cigarette between his eyes in the Heart-Shaped Box music video shoot. You can go back and see the scarring in some photos and stuff. People are always like, I wonder what that was from. And in this book is where I learned about that for the first time. I guess he was in an argument with Courtney or something, and she was, like, oh, this is your big moment. You have to look great. You're the superstar. And Kurt Cobain just put out a cigarette on his head and was like, yeah, do I look good now? So, gotta love it, dude. Punk rock nihilism at its finest. All right, guys. So drum roll. What will the final book mentioned in this Nirvana countdown be? Nirvana The Biography by Everett True. It's a huge book. I mean, it's thicker than my dick, man. And it's a good one. It's kind of got that oral history vibe, even though it's all just, informally written by Everett True, and it kind of just jumps around all over the place. But Everett True was an important musical journalist back in the 90s, and I don't think he was the one that coined the term grunge, but he was one of the first people to, start writing about this scene and stuff like that. So it's a good one. Everett True still does some writing stuff online. I followed him on Twitter before I got kicked off of Twitter a long time ago, and I've just never gone back to Twitter because as far as I'm concerned, if you kick me off, I'm too good for you anyway. So yeah, but it's a good book. The cover's cool. That's another photo of Nirvana in London. There's that documentary that came out on the BBC last year, 2 years ago or whatever, when Nirvana came to Britain, and I think you can see them doing that photo shoot in that documentary. Kurt's hair and makeup kind of looks like it's before the Leeds show when they played at Leeds in 1990. That's another fun one to watch if you like to watch live Nirvana bootlegs on YouTube. Go watch the 1990 Leeds show. I feel like that was like the end of that era of Nirvana. It's pretty fun to watch. Kurt ends up chasing this stage diver off the stage that like gropes him, and it's just kind of funny. So that's something to watch. Maybe I'll do another countdown video on Wednesdays when we talk about Nirvana, where I give you like my top 5 Nirvana bootleg videos to watch or something. And with that, I guess we will start to wrap things up here. I don't really know what else to say. It's Wednesday morning and I need to take a shower and stuff. So let's do that. I'm trying to find some outro music here. I don't know what to play. Deuces, folks. Have a great rest of your week. This has been another episode of the Trutone Talk Show.